And we're back with another edition of the Cosmic Crossfire. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being here today and listening in on, well, our continued coverage, a spoiler cast for The Last Jedi. And I do want to reiterate, if you didn't hear after the break, Josh and I talking earlier with our thoughts on The Last Jedi, all spoilerish and all, remember, the continued conversation between myself and my guests here now, and also as well coming up later on in our fantasy football segment, where Tyler is also going to be sharing his thoughts as well. All spoilers. So if you haven't watched The Last Jedi, maybe you want to continue to turn this off and check back in after you watch The Last Jedi. But we are definitely, indeed, talking the latest Star Wars hit, The Last Jedi, which is now out in theaters. We're going to go full spoilers. And who better to talk about The Last Jedi than two of my good friends? They are the stars of Nintendo Quest, which you can get today. Just check out robmccallumfilms.com. Go right there, order it up. And then while you're at it, as a double shot, you can go ahead and get the Nintendo Quest Power Tour, which has them in several different episodes. Has me in one too, so that was kind of cool. But anyways, they are available, like I said, at robmccallumfilms.com. It's a great documentary on Jay's quest to try and collect all the cartridges within a 30-day span of the Nintendo Entertainment System. Does he do it, or doesn't he? You got to watch and find out. So I've got them here today. It is Jay Bartlett, aka the Star Wars Superfan. And also you want to check out his great site and as far as all of his great charity work as well. But I'll let him talk more about that. It's Jay Bartlett. And of course, our weekly man in the know right here at the Cosmic Crossfire, director Rob McCallum, off screen. What's going on, guys?
Oh, I'm here.
Hey, dude. Thanks for having me again. It's been, I don't know how long has it been, about a year since last time I was on. I think it was a Rogue One episode last time. Yeah.
That's right. It was actually both you guys and Glenn Stanway, part of the GamerCast crew, was here in full, and that was an awesome talk. But this is going to be just as great as well. I know you guys got a chance to check out Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I know I did as well, and I shared some of my thoughts earlier, but I can also interject with you guys on it. But I'm really here to hear your thoughts on some great spoilers and great things going back and forth on your opinions on The Last Jedi movie and where the series can go from here. So I'll start with you, Rob, since always your great input as far as pop culture and your great insight as a director. Your overall thoughts on The Last Jedi.
This is the worst movie ever made. It's equivalent of a Marvel action superhero film. It doesn't even respect the comic book it comes from. It's horrible. Doesn't Rian Johnson ever watch a Star Wars film? Like, why is he trying to change my childhood? I don't like anything that he has written or anything he pointed his cameras at in this. It's just not good because he's not a good person.
Are you quoting the internet? I think you're quoting the internet on that.
That's all I've heard. That's all I've heard recently.
And you signed a petition, correct?
I am the petition starter to make sure that Episode 8 is no longer canon. I hope it gets relegated to legend status.
That is a whole segment onto itself. I would love to just jump into that right now because I started reading that crap today. But let's stay to what we think about the film for now, and then we'll get into that stuff.
All right.
It's no longer just a film. It is a purpose to eliminate it from society and to have it destroy everything as that's what it's doing already. So we must destroy the film.
I don't think it's that far-fetched with Rob. I think his opinions sway just a little bit differently, but we'll have to check in with him in a second again on that. But Jay, I know you watched
Rian Johnson is responsible for the downfall of society.
Oh my gosh.
He doesn't understand laser swords and why they were fun. I don't know why he wasn't replaced like the other directors. The Star Wars franchise is in terrible, terrible shape. It just seems like popcorn is more important than story And why can't everybody let me smile like I did when I was a 4-year-old child?
Okay, then. Well, Jay, you heard that from Rob, who seemingly on the surface didn't like the film very much. Jay, you know what? You, like I said, are one of the biggest Star Wars fans I know. I know you got a chance to see it on Thursday, and I think you also caught it for a second time this past weekend. So what are your thoughts on The Last Jedi?
I loved it. That's not to say it didn't have its, hiccups here and there, but every single one of the films has. So you just gotta kind of go in there and expect that. Um, it was a far deeper Star Wars movie than I recall seeing. There wasn't as much action as there usually is, and I was totally okay with that. There's a lot of dialogue in it, and I'm really surprised that they kind of tied up most of the loose ends in this one. So it kind of makes me curious where they're going to go with the third one. But just, quickly, I absolutely loved it. I do not understand why people are going so ballistic. I understand, that it's different and it's hard for people to, take something that they loved from their childhood and kind of take it in another direction. But I love where it's going. I love Luke's progression as a character. I'm totally satisfied with how his story ends, and we'll leave it at that. You fire us off some more questions. I don't want to take up all.
It's not just hiccups between all the movies. This one was a downright belch of stomach upset, vomiting. There was no just slight indigestion. There was more of gravy than of grave about this.
Well, that's actually a lot of what Josh thinks as well. My own personal thoughts was that I thought the movie was okay. The first third was okay. The second third was really lackluster, boring, and a lot of it was unneeded filler. The third closed out very strong. In fact, one of the strongest endings for the Star Wars series, in my opinion, which actually saved the film from being an utter disaster. So overall, like I said, it's very uneven and all over the place, but came out okay.
Utter disaster. Asteroids hitting for the planet Earth. Thank goodness this movie was good and saved our civilization. They pulled it.
Well, thank goodness the ending was good. Thank goodness the last third.
Those last 40 minutes would have brought upon the downfall of society. This little space war movie, if it didn't do something good, oh no, the walls would rain with blood.
So here's the thing: you have the biggest franchise in film history. Okay,
James Bond.
You're not going to ever live up to everyone's expectations. And I'm not one to get into internet fights, but today especially has really, really angered me with everyone's ridiculous comments. They're just insulting to human intelligence. Make a petition to make the movie not canon. This is a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Okay, internet dwellers, basement dwellers, keyboard heroes, whatever you want to call yourselves. This isn't something that, okay, a couple people don't like the way that Luke's character unfolded, so let's undo the canon. That's absolutely ridiculous to the point of being insulting. Like, this is a billion-dollar corporation, man. This isn't a little Mickey Mouse film. Do you know what I mean?
There's a lot of vitriol for it. I will give you that. But
ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
But there's also a lot of people going to see the film. I mean, you can't really argue with $220 million domestically, $450 million worldwide in its first weekend of release. So you can't argue with the numbers right there. And if it does play out where it does actually expound on that with a larger number or a number comparable to what The Force Awakens did, ultimately that's the deciding factor.
So you might need to turn your speakers down a little bit.
Who? Sorry?
You might need to turn your speakers down a little bit. I can hear Gerald through your speakers.
Yeah, there was a little bit of feedback.
Where's that on here?
Just a little bit of feedback. But while he's doing that, Rob, I know there were some questions that you wanted me to throw out at you guys as far as that's concerned. So I'll start off with you because there's still, while Jay fixes, I think, the feedback that's a little bit there.
Good to go.
Okay. Well, there's still a little bit, but anyways, first off, there are a lot of deaths. It is a film filled with lots of people that are integral to the previous editions of the Star Wars franchise, and also canon and things of that nature that actually bit the dust in this particular film. Rob, there are several to mention, among them Snoke, among them Luke Skywalker, among them for a little bit it was actually Princess Leia as well, and among several others. So I ask you, Rob, is there too much death in The Last Jedi?
Too much compared to what? I mean, what is your barometer for enough or not enough?
There was just so many major key characters that...
Have you seen any film that Tarantino's done or any World War II film? It's just loaded with death. The film is called Star Wars. People are bound to die. Are you just trying to compare it to other entries?
No, I'm just trying to compare it to trying to continue the series forward. And you have a lot of characters that have provided continuity within the series. And a lot of those characters that have provided continuity in the series are no longer going to be able to do so. So I ask you, was it a little bit too much?
No, I don't think so at all, because Force Awakens Episode 7 introduced a ton of new characters. Even if only half of them are still around and you get rid of most of the old guard, you still have tons of characters left to tell a story with. I mean, how many characters were we really bouncing back and forth between in the original trilogy? There wasn't a lot. There was maybe, 7, 8 at the most between everybody that actually had lines and advanced the plot. I think there's a ton of characters left. And
well, maybe I should say some of the choices on the characters, the who lived and who died. First off, killing off Luke's character and also as well Snoke's character were two key components that people are arguing about online and saying that maybe those two could have been an integral part of an Episode 9 and a true closure of the series.
I think they're going to be an integral part of Episode 9. I mean, it doesn't take a superfan to suggest that Luke might come back as a force entity that we saw like as Yoda even in this film, or Obi-Wan Kenobi in the other films. His training isn't done. Just his training and his tutoring in the living form is probably done, but he will definitely appear in Episode 9. I'd be surprised if he didn't, in order to continue to help Rey become the Jedi that she should be, whatever that means. Not necessarily a super soldier, to take down an entire army, because I think one of the things we learned in this film is a Jedi's purpose isn't to be Iron Man. It's to be something else, to be one and connected with things around you. And this was a nice little reminder of that. So I think Luke will be back to help teach Rey what she needs to learn to become who she is and find her place, which might not be at the top. And if you look at The Last Jedi, even in the title itself, it's not about being on the top and in the forefront necessarily. It's just about being a part of something bigger and knowing your role within that. As far as Snoke, I think that his death is going to reverberate as well in a different way. I think it's going to anger Kylo Ren that this person is gone. Whether a new villainous force or antagonist emerges or not, it remains to be seen. But he's got enough on his plate in terms of what story options might unfold for Episode 9, with him sort of in command as the quote-unquote supreme leader, the childlike king, if you will, kind of ruling over what pieces of the armada are left. And there's tons, right? Because they're in full control of the galaxy, from what we understood. And even though there was maybe a small defeat or a delayed victory on that last planet, it's not like he's going to give up when he's that close.
Well, I also think that General Hux is the one actually that will be the primary antagonist to what Kylo Ren has done with Snoke. But Jay, your thoughts on on Luke's death, and also the fact that Supreme Leader Snoke has perished, leaving many to question why we invested any time in him at all, because we didn't really get to see exactly the origins of his character and how he really started to affect Ben Solo to do the things he did.
I don't know if you really needed to see that. I always wondered the last 2 years who he was. Was he around before Palpatine? Blah blah blah. But that's just us as fans building him up to be like Palpatine. You really think about it. Does it really matter at this point? Does it really matter who he is? He was some dark force user who manipulated Ren into, destroying the temple and taking him under his wing, killing his father, trying to get him to kill Leia.
It's really a parallel to Rey's history, right? Who is she? Where does she come from? According to, Kylo Ren with what he saw, she comes from nowhere special. Is that any different than Snoke? But yet it works so perfectly for who she is. Why can't it work just as cleanly for him?
Yeah, I don't think it matters. You knew Snoke was a really bad dude, and Kylo Ren, at the end, he took Snoke's abuse for God knows how long, and in the end, he bested him with his wits and killed him, and he became the master. They're not Sith, but it's the same idea. Luke Skywalker is by far my favorite character in the history of any kind of pop culture, anything, and to see him become one with the Force. I had a couple tears in my eyes, but it wasn't horrific, because if you know Star Wars, he's not gone. Like Obi-Wan said, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. He says to Ren, you strike me down, I'll always be with you. He's not gone. Luke's physical form is gone, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be a huge part in Episode 9.
Actually, I'm a huge fan of what they did with Luke Skywalker in terms of his character and where he was at, because he's very much that farm boy that we were first introduced at in Episode 4, where he sees these limitations in front of him. He doesn't believe that he can overcome them. It's all about, what he can't do and what nobody can do for him. And it's all these walls, and he gets put back into that place where it's all these limitations that prevent him from doing anything. Instead of taking that leap of faith, and instead of trying to believe in the Force, he shuts himself out from that. And at this point, because he's an adult, he can do more of that, and it's a little bit more on him as a person to create those own walls for himself. So he basically has to get out of that rut again and learn to believe in everything that, he had learned. He must unlearn what he had learned to relearn it. So it's actually a really good full circle moment for that character to come back to.
One thing I wanted to... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, sorry, it's also really funny that in the last few days, with the hate that the film is getting, especially with what happened to Luke, that his character almost went through what we're going through, whereas, 30 years have passed, what happened to him? We all expect Luke to be this ultimate being in the universe where, if you face those walkers, you expected him to snap his fingers and they would all crumble in front of him. Everyone expected to see that. You didn't see that from Luke. You saw a guy who was still vulnerable, who was still embarrassed at his failure, embarrassed at his slight temptation to the dark side. And a guy who's he's done with it. He spent 30 years after Jedi gathering all the relics across the galaxy to find out exactly everything about the Jedi, tried to start a temple with, 12 students and failed. And I don't think the viewers wanted to see that. They wanted to see Luke in his Jedi robes, floating and almost like a god. And they didn't get that.
Well, it's because they've been so indoctrinated.
But where I have problems with that is where people think that Rian Johnson owes them something. Just like they thought JJ, just like they thought George did. It's like, this is not your series, guys. If you don't like it anymore, then just stop watching it. That's all there is to it. But to get a petition together, it's infuriating. It's ridiculous.
Well, it's really funny. I think that the backlash is so strong, and I agree with you. A lot of people wanted to see this super soldier basically wipe out everything, with the snap of his fingers to decimate and live up to the 30 years of legend that we had all been a part of. Like, oh, Luke can save everything. The reality is he's like an aging athlete. He'll never be as good as his glory days, and he has to face up to the frailty that's before him. So everybody wants this big superhero, and to have this overpowered dominance to destroy this big greater evil. And when that doesn't happen, they leave the theater and they try to take control and power for themselves. It's like they're missing the whole point here of Star Wars about the evilness and like forming together and like starting hatred and spreading it all instead of understanding and finding everybody's place and the place of this film within our culture. They've like completely like erased everything that they've ever learned, not only through this film and the previous one, but the originals as well.
Well, I think that's just in the sense of entitlement a lot of people have, because the amount of time that they've invested and amount of money they invested on Star Wars properties, the movies, television, the whole 9 yards and what have you. So I think that they feel like they have some sense of entitlement in order to go ahead and share those opinions. But I like I said, I liked the bold directions which Rian Johnson made throughout the film. I think it was of anything that you can salvage out of it for me and think that it was a positive. I think that's for me was the best part, is that he took some bold chances and bold opportunities to put the series into a different direction. And I think that part of it gives me, for lack of a better term, hope that the episode 9 and going forward will actually continue to be something that people will want to watch, and something interesting to watch as well. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, speaking of deaths, as we've talked about with Supreme Leader Snoke and also as well Luke Skywalker, is Princess Leia. We know obviously as well Carrie Fisher passed away after filming The Last Jedi. And I do believe that it was such a great way to remind us of exactly how wonderful she is. I thought her performance was very solid, and I definitely think it was a credit to her and what she was about to go through, that she performed so greatly during the picture. And obviously they gave her a nice tribute at the end. But there is the fact that early on in the picture there was an opportunity for her character to be, in the cohesion of the script, as far as her perishing, giving her opportunity to, within the context of the story, being given her the opportunity, or the script writers and what have you for episode 9 and whatnot, giving them the opportunity to already have her character finished off in that sense. Do you think the death scene, which turned out to be an actual her showing off the fact that she does have force powers and uses them, do you think that was something that could have been, maybe should have stayed in that realm, or do you like the fact that she was actually given as much context, she was allowed to live and allowed to remain alive by the end of the movie?
If I may, this is again a scene that was strange to see at first, and I will say that because we've never seen anything like that before. But I think it was amazing. You picture someone using the Force, whether a light side user, tricking somebody or moving boulders. You picture the bad guy choking people out or shooting lightning. This was a new way. This was like sustaining life. She saved herself. I think it was wonderful. Everyone always wanted to see Leia use her powers, and she felt Han's death and things like that. But everyone always wanted to see Leia use the Force.
But I'm just saying because of the unfortunate, tragic, her dying in real life after the filming events, they could have gone back and they could have just restructured the film to have her perish right there.
Yeah, but I mean, the way the scene unfolds, where it's Kylo and her back and forth sensing each other, and he's got his finger on the trigger, and then he just can't do it. Like, if the TIE fighters had shot the side of the ship out and she died there, where would his character have gone from there? Right? It just wouldn't have made a lot of sense.
But now you have the dilemma of trying to figure out a respectful and obviously crowd-pleasing response to finding a way to gracefully
Let's make it clear. There's nothing about this film that's trying to be crowd-pleasing.
Well, that's true.
Why would that go forward with more crowd-pleasing, so that there are less petitions out on the next go-around? They'll figure out a solution. It'll have to be either an off-screen death that takes place between the films, or it'll have to be something that happens at the beginning of episode 9.
And
That's
that's
the
what I want to
reality.
ask you, as someone who writes, who has written scripts and things of that, screenplays and things of that nature. You're presented with this, and for lack of a better term, dilemma. So you're going to have to come up with something like that. Is that going to be satisfying enough as far as from a filmmaker standpoint?
If it was up to me, I would open with her funeral scene, just like we saw Qui-Gon's funeral, you know, in Phantom Menace. I would probably open up Episode 9 with something like that. The fact that she passed away in real life shouldn't be this big burden I have as a screenwriter to please millions of fanboys around the world to get this story perfect. You know, it feels really strange when people complain that she lived and was in the film longer because she died in real life when they could have, you know, killed her off at that point. Yeah, there are ways to rewrite that, but maybe so much of it was already shot with her interacting with all these characters. It would have been tons and tons of reshoots, which would have opened up more and more problems. And like, let's forget the whole financial side, because, you know, we think Disney has billions and billions of dollars. There could have been so many other complications with scheduling with some of these other actors that are pretty big up and coming. You know, Oscar Isaac, for example, he's got tons of stuff on his plate that he's doing. Could he have come back to redo all those scenes with Poe? Could Laura Dern really come back to fill the gap that Leia was basically, you know, passing down that torch? I don't know. There's just too many unknowns that we don't have from our side of the curtain, and it doesn't matter. This is what the film is. They'll have to figure something out. She won't be around unless they, you know, do like holographic, you know, recreation, which they've already said that they won't, because of the backlash of Rogue One and what happened there, and people wondering if that's going to be part of Episode 8 and 9. They've already come out and said that, so it's just not a big deal.
One of the major complaints fans have is the middle part of the movie. The middle section of the movie seems to be a particular sticking point for individuals, fans, and myself that have issues with the film. I thought there was a lot there that could have been taken out. I thought there was a lot there that was convoluted and was unnecessary, and was giving a lot of the characters just something to do to get them to the end point of the movie. I want to ask you, Jay, there is a part where Finn, Rose head to Canto Bright, basically the casino world, to acquire the services of a codebreaker. In this case, it is DJ, which stands for Don't Join, with Benicio del Toro playing the role. Was this, when you were watching it, did it come off like it was really important or integral to the picture, or with the way that DJ ended up really just not making a whole much a big of an impact, and also as well the whole episode where they were trying to go ahead and break the code and go into the Imperial ship and try to go ahead and defeat the First Order that way. Did you think it was just something for those characters to do, or did you think it was necessary to the actual plot to get the entire movie over? Or do you think, like a lot of people like myself, that it could have just been something that was left on the cutting room floor?
No, I love that story arc. First, I'll go back and say I love that they were being chased the whole movie, that the Resistance was being chased by the First Order, and that was something that was really, really appealing to me. Finn is very impetuous. He's very, like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He wants to be the hero, but he jumps at everything like Poe does. It's really interesting to see that they went to find the guy with the red lapel, and they found him, but they got arrested before they actually got to find the guy that they were supposed to bring back. So instead they have to settle for this scumbag that's in the cell beside them. So they didn't go there to find DJ. They went there to find this other James Bondish looking dude that we see at the, craps table or whatever.
Justin Theroux, by the way.
Oh, there you go. Okay. I thought it was the Captain America guy for a few minutes when I first saw him. But what I like about that scene, and a lot of people are complaining about, is that Finn and Rose get thrown in jail for parking illegally. Now, why I like this is because throughout the saga, you see all these heroes go to multiple worlds and basically do whatever the hell they want in these worlds. Now, this was a place where Finn and Rose parked in a society, in a city, and they can't do that. And it's cool to see, like, that world's law, like, arrest them. Like, you can't just come in here and do what you want. You know what I mean? Like, they got caught by the police. I think it's fantastic. And on the subject of DJ, I think he's one of my favorite characters in that film. Benicio del Toro is just, I couldn't take my eyes off him. He was fabulous.
Rob, what are your thoughts on that middle part of the section? Because like I said, to me, it just came across as filler, but Jay obviously has some great counterpoints to that. But what are your thoughts on that trip to Canto Bright? To, how integral was that end of the story to the actual whole overarching theme of The Last Jedi?
I think we'll have to see what happens in episode 9, because that kind of sequence in the very last scene of the film seems something that would be fitting more in a closing chapter that kind of casts the light towards what the future might be, which is what we got with that last scene that also happens on Canto Bright. As far as its place within The Last Jedi and its purpose and its function, I mean, it could be completely removed and the story wouldn't change. Finn and Rose never really, complete their mission. They still end up back with the rest of the rebellion. The characters needed something to do from a functional point of view, whether it was that or something else. I'm not sure. It felt like another cantina scene when they arrived in the casino, which felt a little stale and stock to me. I don't mind the messages about animal cruelty and there are no good guys and bad guys. It's not as decisive as we see. People are selling arms to both the rebellion and the First Order. That's all great. There are other ways to handle it. I think the biggest problem I have is the clunkiness in which that story kind of gets launched off, where we're in this chase, very much like Empire Strikes Back, which is a constant chase movie as well, with the Empire constantly on the Millennium Falcon and then eventually tracking them to Cloud City without their knowledge. So this is very much like that. Is the clunkiness is in that they can slip away from the First Order without them seeing, because Billy Lord tells whatever her name is that it was just a piece of space debris that shoots off. Like, that maybe kind of sort of foreshadows how the Rebels were planning to leave their big cruiser ship and kind of sneak off to the little planet, almost like wayward pieces of junk like we saw in Empire. But at the same time, it's like, well, if one ship can just zoom out, why can't they all just do that? I would question that. If they can just kind of one at a time leave and nobody cares because everybody's tracking the big ship and what it does going to light speed, then they all could have done that.
Well, speaking of like that, I'll go ahead, Jay. You wanted to?
That's okay. I was just gonna say again, it's another DJ's character is another downer. And again, it doesn't have that Hollywood resolution. Like, he's not Han Solo. He's not Lando. He doesn't have a heart of gold. He just says basically, we got caught. I made a deal. And that's it. And he leaves them there to get executed. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan of his character for sure. And I think the biggest thing that they could do with what they've done with him is bring him back. I really hope he is just as we see him, and we never see him again unless he shows up in some other standalone film that is loosely connected to this in a small way. I don't want to see him in episode 9. Let him be who he is. We've seen enough of him. He served a purpose. I
agree. There's characters. I know your favorite scene in Force Awakens, Rob, is on Han's Eravana ship when Kanji Club and Balatik corner Han.
I was so disappointed when Kanji Club didn't show up in this.
I liked Kanji Club. I liked Balatik. But, when The Force Awakens was done, I didn't need to see those characters again. So I really hope, as much as I do like DJ, I hope that that's the end. He's gone.
I like the actual movie that Kanji Club actually was in first before they were in The Force Awakens. I think that was much better representation of by the members of Kanji Club personally. But we won't go into that one. That one's for some action fans if they actually want to seek that out. But a conflict between Poe Dameron and Vice Admiral Holdo, played by Laura Dern, arises halfway through the movie based on separate plans to thwart the advances of the First Order. Doesn't it make sense for Holdo to have informed Poe of her plans in order to avoid this continual conflict between the two? And just because to me it seemed like an unneeded squabble if she just informed Poe what was going on, because he was a thorn in her side throughout that period of time until he realized, oh, that's what she's doing. And if he had just been notified of what was going on, he could have probably, it would have saved exactly any type of, to me, what was unnecessary and unneeded conflict.
I disagree.
Because the way I see it, if Holdo has just seen this pilot risk the lives of how many people, got most of them killed, and no matter what she says to him, he's going to have his own idea. So whether she tells him the secret plan and hopes it gets away and gets off without any issues, or she doesn't, she's screwed either way. It's a double-edged sword. So she's better off not having to cater to the lonely like pilot who thinks, you know, he's above everybody else. Does this sound familiar? Like the fans of Star Wars out there, you know, who just want everything their way and they're going to do it no matter what, and they're going to bitch and complain? Or should, you know, the person in charge just do what's right because they have a grander vision that some people with limited vision don't see?
Here, let me ask you guys this question. I don't want to get off topic too much here, but if I may, I don't watch the superhero stuff. So when a Marvel movie comes out, like a big one like the Avengers, is this the same kind of reception it gets? Like if like the Infinity Gauntlet trailer came out, Infinity Wars, and I remember when they showed Thanos coming into the Earth realm, and everyone like started making fun of him and making memes of him and stuff like that. Like, are all the big releases like this?
Well, I can tell you the last one was Captain America Civil War, would be something like that. And for the most part, a lot of people enjoyed that, and it did not get the kind of backlash that seemingly The Last Jedi has gotten now.
Well, what was the reception to Spider-Man? Because that came out this summer.
Pretty favorable because Spider-Man.
Well, no. Okay, here's a good example: Justice League.
Well, Justice League,
or anything DC gets shit on to this degree.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious because I wondered if those fans of the comics have the same sense of entitlement, like, oh, you know, this is what Spider-Man should be doing, or this is what Superman should be doing. I just think it's funny. It's like, I don't know. I'm really just annoyed. You guys caught me on a good day today because I'm really pissed off about this whole thing. It's like, you know, did you go to film school? Did you study? Did you work your ass off to be able to get into a position where you get hired to write Star Wars? Of course you didn't.
Jay, more importantly, what's it going to take today to get your name on that petition? I need to know. I'm going to put your name on that petition. I just need to know what I got to do to get it there.
Oh, man, you couldn't. You'd have to kill me and chop my hand off, and even at that, I wouldn't.
Okay, we have a starting point. I like this. As long as we got a starting point. Natural salesman in me comes out because we have an accord to work with.
Listen. I put this on my good friend Joe. Wrote something on Facebook regards to this, and I wrote a response, and I just said, you know, they didn't like the special editions, they didn't like all the stuff added, okay? They didn't like the prequels, right? Rogue One was boring and lifeless. Force Awakens plagiarized A New Hope, and now you have this. Star Wars is not episode 4, 5, and 6 anymore. These people need to evolve, and I love when Kylo Ren says, you know, let the past die. It's exactly the same thing. It's like you're gonna grow with this franchise and get out of this little Luke Han Leia bubble that you're in, or you know, just let it go, man.
But you don't even have to. Like, those films don't change; they're still there.
No, but people's expectations, like Han Solo shouldn't have been killed by this bratty blah blah blah. Luke shouldn't have gone down like that. It's like, you know, if you don't like the way they're going anymore, don't watch it. There was a time
I gotta watch it, Jay. I have to.
It was 4, 5, and 6 versus 1, 2, and 3. Now 4, 5, and 6 are way in the minority of Star Wars content out there. If you don't like the way Star Wars is going, ladies and gentlemen, just stop liking it. And that's the problem.
I have to
People can't stop hating it. They love to hate the series.
I have to. That's what my keyboard's for. I have to hate it.
All right, children. All right. As Jay drinks more tea from his porg mug.
Yeah,
exactly. So he has already bought into The Last Jedi, apparently. So he's all in. So that's great to see that he's so enthusiastic about these series.
I'm not bought into it, my friend. I think it's a quality movie, and it expands the universe in a way that we haven't seen before. I think it's fantastic. So anyway, sorry, go on.
No worries. But Yeah, I will say, ask one more question, then I'm going to go into like another broad statement after that. Your thoughts on the interaction between
Wrong.
Luke? Huh? I'm sorry.
It's just all wrong. My thoughts are wrong. Your thoughts are wrong. This movie is wrong. The internet is right.
No. It's your opinion, and you're entitled to do so.
Nobody's entitled to anything. Let's just lose that right away, okay? Nobody's
No.
entitled to anything. Let's just stop there. Quit giving them a platform.
Let's just say you did. Let's just say you had an opinion. What were your thoughts on Luke and Rey on the island?
I'm not entitled to an opinion. I may share it, but I'm not entitled to one.
So let's share. What share your thoughts on Luke and Rey and that whole interaction and quasi training that took place during the Last Jedi?
It mirrored the Dagobah training, except Luke wasn't testing Rey. Luke genuinely just didn't want to do it, where Yoda was being difficult on purpose. I liked it. I thought it was long. I thought we got to spend a lot of time with those two characters. And isn't it really freaky that Luke, once he's on the island, like that's it. Like he never comes off it. It's crazy.
Rob, and then also the interactions between Luke and also Ben Solo, aka Kylo Ren, while they're interacting with that Force little mind communication thing, because that happens at several points in time. If you were directing The Last Jedi, would you have also included those as well as a way of context and the struggle between the light and the dark?
Okay, so let me answer the first question, then I'll answer your other 7 that you tell me I'm entitled to answer. The first one, as far as the training stuff on the island, I think it's satisfying in a way because Rey learns nothing that she didn't already have, and Luke has nothing more to give than he's already given. And once both characters realize that there's no purpose for this to happen, like there's nothing more to gain, really, there isn't really necessarily an arc until they both realize that point that I don't need any more, and I don't need to know who my parents are to go to the next step, and Luke realizing it's not right to give up, then that's the point that of all that matters. But there's nothing to gain there in terms of like a mentor trainee relationship or like turning Rey into a Jedi.
And that's what people wanted, Rob, and that's why everyone's losing their crap, is because they wanted to see Yoda and Luke again. Like
well,
Luke,
they did.
right? But no. I mean
and Yoda said, "You're an idiot, Skywalker. You're an idiot. Go ahead, burn the tree, but I'll burn it first because that's how much your entitled opinion on how to handle things matters. You stupid Star Wars fanboy. Screw you."
No, they wanted to see Luke train Rey like Yoda trained Luke. They wanted to see that kind of like her upside down and lifting rocks and doing all that stuff, and they didn't see it. So it's another thing. But
the cool thing is they can watch Empire,
right?
They can go back and watch Empire if they want to see that. They don't have to keep getting the same old stuff with a shiny new package. They can actually get something new and learn to deal with it instead of being stuck in this little nostalgic bubble of what feels safe to them.
Yeah.
Well, and I tell you what, I think it was for me some of the best parts of the movie with actually Luke Skywalker reminding us, almost like I think like you had said before and mentioned before, Jay, that it was almost like a play-by-play of what happened in the past and what people expect even now from him. And what eventually happened in the movie, I think, was a great way to send off Luke's character, even though he had the forced heart attack and died right there. And I'm gone. But obviously, it's
What
episode
was
9.
that?
I think the forced heart attack right there,
like a dog in the desert.
There you go, something like that. But you know,
so to go back to that,
episode 9, it's gonna be like I think Rob said as well, that he will be appearing in obviously the fashion that Yoda did in this movie, and obviously others Ben Kenobi has as well.
The only thing that I would have changed in that part is when Kylo talks about what happened with Luke, and then when Luke talks about it, I don't think they should have visualized it. That was kind of a little weird looking to me. It was really strange looking. I think,
but not everybody's a big a fan as you. So a lot of people do need some type of context to see that actually happened.
I liked it because I'm a huge fan of when we see perspective shifts and how everything is different from a certain perspective. And for them to visualize it really showed us how far Luke had bought into his own fame and his myth. They like over stylized, the look, the angles, the lighting. His eyes were almost sunken in and dark, like you could see that he had almost given in to the dark side a little bit with how great he thought he was, and he was like feeding his ego, even in both versions that we saw there. I thought seeing those flashbacks was pretty great.
And finally, I'll ask you guys this, and we'll leave it on this note because it's been a great conversation already. And once again, appreciate everybody listening in on the Cosmic Crossfire. I'm here once again with my good friends, Jay Bartlett, and also as well, director Rob McCallum. Want to check out their great film together that they made, Nintendo Quest. Check it out today. RobMcCallumFilms.com has all the info on how you can get it. And I'll tell you what, it is a can't miss documentary indeed. So I'll leave it with you guys with this. With so many key figures gone and having the feeling like this is more, to me, from my personal vantage point, feeling like more like an end of a trilogy as opposed to a continuation of it, where can the series go from here in episode 9? And Jay, I'll start with you first.
Well, you're going to see Kylo Ren become more powerful than Darth Vader ever was. You're going to see a darker... He's black now. His heart is black. Like he's done. He's just full of hate. There's no turning back for him now. So you're gonna see him in the First Order just become this like onslaught. I don't know. It's kind of scary because there's so few Resistance fighters left. I think, or people. I think there's 10 or 15 left, including Leia and Poe. So yeah, I really don't know. Maybe there's going to be some other characters coming back from the trilogy, like Lando. We haven't seen Lando. I don't know what he's going to do.
he should have been on Canto Bite or whatever it is.
Canto Bite, yeah.
Yeah, he should have been there gambling and stuff. And they should have had pod racing there too.
Yeah, that's what
I agree with you. Maybe that would have spiced things up a bit.
Yeah. I don't know. I agree with you, Gerald. I think this one very much closed it off like the third film. Like, most of the questions were answered except, again, who Snoke is. But yeah, we find out who Rey's parents are. Luke does the big ultimate sacrifice to save Leia in the rebellion. So it's interesting. Yeah, like, are they going to introduce another big villain in the final film? Like, I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense.
Well, I'm not sure 100% that they gave full contexture to Rey's parents. I'm not 100% sold that they were just junkers. I think.
Okay, you know what? You must have signed the petition pretty early on, if that's what you believe, or if that matters.
I don't know. I just, I
was just gonna say the way Kylo Ren says it to her, he's almost annoyed, like,
because
he's
he's this big Skywalker, and like the pressure's on him to do this, and he can. He's got to deal with some sort of junk trading.
Yeah, he's annoyed, and it's almost like he's talking to the audience. He's like, you still don't know. He's like, they were no one. They were junk.
Well, I will give you Anakin from the prequels was obviously didn't come up from the greatest background either. So that could
be. But his midichlorian count was off the charts. I signed a petition about
that one. Jay, any last thoughts on that?
I'll just say, JJ and Rian Johnson, both those guys, you can't even begin to understand the responsibility that's on their shoulders. So guys, cut them a break. Do you know what I mean? And JJ for the next one, just cut them a break. And if you're not a fan of the direction it's going, there's plenty of other films out there you can be fanboys about. Just let it go, man. Let it go.
There is a Fantastic Beasts coming out next year, but we won't go there. Rob, any last thoughts on what we're talking about as far as where can the series go from here after all the events that took place in The Last Jedi?
I think you're going to see a more balanced approach to things. I certainly hope we don't see like another, if we destroy the Death Star by doing this exact thing, we will save the galaxy. I think, gosh, I hope we have some sort of importance to Finn, because he's a character I haven't liked since Force Awakens, and I've been waiting for him to make a mark with something that I can actually get behind. But like Jay said, he's just jumping at any opportunity that comes his way. It'd be nice if he actually gets grounded and has a purpose for existing. I think that he might be able to help turn the tide within the First Order and rally some of those troops that are so faceless and numbered and unknown, and actually show them that they can have an identity and that they can kind of, through the ranks, take down the First Order that way. And that's the kind of rise of the rebellion too. But I don't think that anybody can be like a big winner at the end of the day so that they're in power. I mean, we learned that, and we were reminded of that again in episode 8 when Luke talks about the Jedi being at the height of their power. You know, it was the most blind time of them, as we saw through the prequel trilogy. So one side having the most isn't going to be the greatest thing. It'll be about finding a balance at the end, which is really tricky in a Hollywood film. So we will see where it goes.
Definitely, we will indeed. But
unless the petition says nobody wants episode 9 now because they're so upset with episode 8.
I doubt that will happen. So no matter how,
do you think it's going to stop Disney? What people write on the internet?
No,
probably not.
Probably not. The dollars. That's the only thing that will stop the Disney from thinking and reevaluating the Star Wars franchise is people voting with their pocketbooks. But if they keep coming in droves,
but just remember, sci-fi was a horrible genre, relegated to Planet of the Apes status before A New Hope came out. Nobody wants to watch a sci-fi film. Those are stupid. That's what everybody said. And then Star Wars came out. And then nobody was going to want to buy the action figures. Toys for movies don't sell. Only TV shows sell toys. Well, that was wrong there too. And then everybody hates Ewoks. Oh God, what are they doing? They wrecked these movies because they had Ewoks, and they had a little green creature thing in Empire. Oh, stupid.
But you know what's funny too? Did they ever think that, you know, Harrison's well in his 70s, Mark's almost at 70. You know, how many more movies do they think in this current universe they're going to make with Luke Skywalker? Not that they're going to write him out because of his age, but you know what I mean? Like,
well, they didn't write Carrie Fisher out because of her death, right? So, like, why would they write somebody out because of their age?
Well, maybe these guys are just like, you know, we'll do a few more, but, like, you can't have Luke Skywalker.
Well, Daisy really said episode 9 would be her last. She's already on record saying at least to be last for a while, she said.
Well, regardless, the point I'm trying to make with all this petition crap that's going on is everybody has always been vocal about things that they don't like. It just seems there's a much more presence and volume to it now because of the internet. I guarantee you the reactions have never changed. It's just that they're more present in our faces because we're stuck to these screens and everybody's talking about what they want because everybody's used to getting what they need.
Definitely some great points indeed. Once again, I have director Rob McCallum and Jay Bartlett from Nintendo Quest. Guys, before we head on out, I want to make sure that you both get in some time to plug exactly what's going on in your world. Rob with RobMcCallumFilms.com, and Jay, we'll start off with you with your great organization, Star Wars Echo 3.
Yeah, my charity group is called Star Wars Echo 3. We pretty much show up and do events and raise money for anyone that's in need. We're big with the Children's Health Foundation and also with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So you can follow us on Facebook at Star Wars Echo 3. Send us a message if you're interested in joining the crew, or if you need us to attend any of your events. We're total nonprofit, so we will show up and just make people's days a bit brighter.
And Rob, what you got going on with all the great things that are happening at Rob McCallum Films?
Oh, there's always something going on. Of course, we're gearing up for the release of the Kitty documentary and Power of Grayskull in the not too distant future. Hopefully we'll have some dates to share in 2018. But, you know, you keep mentioning this Nintendo Quest movie that Jay and I are on, and frankly, Gerald, it's getting old hat to keep talking about that film over and over and over again.
Well, you keep telling me it pops up all over the world, my friend.
It would certainly be nice to talk about a new film with Jay and I. I know that would be that would be interesting. I don't know. It would be really interesting to mention something Star Wars related with a new film with Jay and I.
Well, since we are here, and I know you two are always thick as thieves, as the saying goes, what do you have planned? And what do you have in mind? And what do you have going on with you guys both in something new within the Star Wars realm?
Well, we've got something up our sleeves. We're closer than ever before to announcing something. It does involve Jay and myself. It does involve Star Wars. There will likely be a big campaign push, probably a Kickstarter presence, and it's going to take it up a notch in ways that Nintendo Quest could never do. And yeah, it's hard to say more at this point until some of the pieces align. But get ready for it.
Well, I know I'm going to get ready for it because going on the ride with you guys with Nintendo Quest was certainly one of the greatest experiences that I've had. And I'll tell you what, anybody out there that wants to go ahead and find out more of what's going on with this upcoming project, they just have to stay tuned to Rob McCallum Films on Facebook, Rob McZob on Twitter, and also robmccallumfilms.com. Guys, it's been great having you on, sharing your thoughts on The Last Jedi. Hopefully you guys won't be signing any petitions anytime soon. But I'll leave that up to you. But I truly appreciate you guys taking the time out to talk to me, and also as well everybody out there about The Last Jedi right here in the Cosmic Crossfire.